Greeting and welcome to the Intensive Success Growth. I am your host, Nishant Sharma. Please give warm welcome to our guest, Christine. Christine is a coach, author, speaker. Welcome, Christine.
Thank you, Nishant. I'm so delighted to be here.
Okay, let me start with this. Where were you? What happened? Who were you surrounded with that inspired you to do what you do today?
Oh, you want the origin story? Well, let's see. I mean, taking it way back, it goes back to my grandmother, Mahoney. And she was an incredible woman, one of the first women to graduate from a university as a female. And she was a working woman back when it just wasn't, especially if you were a white woman in the United States, it didn't happen that way. And my grandfather became ill with Alzheimer's. And it was before that, there was a diagnosis of that. And so she was really caretaking him, working full time, not asking for a lot of help, not, she was just taking care of it. And it was a 2-year, really long journey with his health. And when he died and passed away, there was, of course, grieving and loss. But there was also, we knew he was better off where he was then. And she started reliving her life. It was back when computers were just starting to come out. She was taking a computer class. She was in her 70s taking a computer class. She was working, she was redoing the house. And I was, I believe, 14 at the time. And she dropped from an aneurysm, and 6 months after he passed away. And what the doctor said was it was because of all the caregiving, and that she was so busy taking care of him, she didn't take care of herself. And so that is why I do what I do now, because I work with people about how to take care of themselves while they're taking care of their communities. So I work with professional caregivers, private caregivers. I work with activists and artists, the people that are in danger of really, and I don't want to be dramatic, but of dying if they don't take care of themselves, because the studies and the statistics show us that that's true. So that is my first origin story. You want the second one?
Yes.
So my friend and co-author, Dr. Sheila K. Collins, is somebody that I met 25 years ago at a National Association of Social Workers conference. She was promoting her first book. She was embodied. She was, sometimes when you go to these professional conferences, they're snooze fest. Like you go because you need the credit hours, you need all that, but they just, they can be tough. Well, she was not. She was a dancing social worker. She was embodied. She was teaching people how to take care of themselves. And I was still in my undergrad. I was young. I was like, oh my gosh, I want to be her when I grow up. And I was putting myself through college. So I stood in line. She hates when I tell this part of the story. I stood in line and bought her book, which at the time was a week's worth of groceries because I was a poor college student. But I was so like, oh my gosh, I have to. She signed my book. We went totally separate directions. She went back to the University of Texas at Arlington. I went back to my college, which was about 3 or 4 hours away. And I didn't think I'd ever see her again because that was back before the internet. And then I got invited to this women's circle, and I show up for this retreat in this women's circle, and she is one of the founding members of the circle. And we have then just been friends and colleagues. And then you fast forward about 20 years, and she invited me to come on and update the very first book that I stood in line for, to update all the statistics, to add my voice to it, and we became co-authors, and we're traveling around the world before the pandemic shut us down, just having a blast and doing the work that we love to do.
Oh, amazing story. So what are the top 3 reasons why do people fail?
Why do people fail at self-care? Because they're putting other people's needs above their own, which sometimes in times of crisis, they need to. right? But if you do that consistently, your health can fail, your business can fail, all kinds of things can fail. I think the other thing is they don't schedule it. You know, we schedule our meetings, we schedule our things, but especially as small business owners and for people that are entrepreneurs and taking care of themselves, or they're corporate leaders, they often don't schedule their own self-care, whether that's exercise, doctor's appointments, going for a walk with a friend, or just scheduling time to do nothing, if that is what refills your bucket. So I think we often fail because we don't make the time for it. We think, oh, I don't have time. And the third reason is, I think, because often society tells us that we can't do it, that they tell us, no, you got to do all these other things before you do that, because that might be selfish. And I want to dispel that myth. I think they would fail if they believe in that myth that self-care is selfish.
What is your greatest success story that other can model from you?
Ah, greatest success story. You know, I was talking this morning with a friend. So before the pandemic, I was invited to speak at the United Nations for the status on the Commission on the Status of Women. I always flip those two words. And I was doing community social work, working with folks who had immigrated here. They were refugees in a crisis, and we were doing interplay. So we were doing embodied work to build community and build self. And we were just having a blast. So I think part of the story is having fun and doing your work and your passion that you're called. And then we were invited to go speak at the United Nations. And I said yes. And it's one of those things I will never forget. But I was having a conversation with a friend because my colleague at the time said no. And then it was this thing later on, because it really upset her that she said no. And I think that part of my success has been that I say yes to things. I'm like, oh yeah, let's do that. Even things that scare me. So I will tell you, when I got invited to speak at the UN, I of course said yes. I jumped in, yep, I'll do that. And then I got off the phone and completely freaked out. Like, oh my gosh, like what is happening here? And I called a dear friend and advisor, and she said to me, and I will never forget these words because I use them every day. She said, they have welcomed you to their stage. Now I want you to welcome yourself. And immediately, like, the nerves left and I calmed down, and I was like, yeah, I can welcome myself. So I use that for myself. I use it with my clients, remembering that often we have to say yes to opportunities that are presented to us, even when they scare us, and welcome yourself.
Okay, great. So, what motivates you within?
What motivates me within? You know, one of my values is connection. I believe in being connected to myself, to my community, to nature. So I think connection is what motivates me. I go outside every morning, get connected with the earth, with the sun, and then I look at my list of who I need to connect to that day. And whether it's through work or personal relationships, like, I value and I lead with connection.
Okay. What's your company motto?
Oh, do I have a company motto? Yes, I think it kind of goes with that same value. It is about being connected to ourself and taking care of ourselves in order to sustain and thrive in our community care.
Okay. Who is your ideal client?
Oh, my ideal client. Well, often it is professional or private caregivers. It is activists. It is people who have a passion and a purpose to take care of others and often forget about themselves a little bit.
Okay. How do you find your ideal client?
Well, often word of mouth. They'll sometimes find me on social media or when I'm on a book tour. I think you interviewed my co-host Shannon Mitchell. So we have the Women Connected in Wisdom podcast, and it's ranked in one of the top 10% globally. And so people find us through that because we're live every Wednesday, and we talk about the 8 dimensions of wellness. And so people find me through the podcast or online, or often somebody says, hey, you need to talk to Christine. So it's all about that connecting piece.
Okay. How do you deliver 5-star client experience?
How do I deliver a 5-star client? That is a great question, Nishant. I think one of the things is I'm very intentional about the relationship. I value relationships. I value really listening to what my client is needing. And I also use tools and approaches that a lot of other people don't use. So I really believe in being embodied and using our whole selves. So I think I am a strength-based, affirming coach. And so with all of my clients, I'm really intentional about what it is that the client needs, and we co-create it together.
Okay. What are you grateful for today?
Today, what am I grateful for? I am grateful for the rain today. We had a morning thunderstorm, and the rain and just the cooling that it has happened, because, we've got a lot of warming happening on our planet right now, and people are suffering. So I am grateful for the rain.
Okay. How do you start your day?
How do I start my day? Oh, Nishant, I love these questions. So I love to start my day. I am privileged enough that I built a labyrinth in my backyard. So I like to take a walking meditation in the morning and start my day from the center of my labyrinth, greeting the sun, and really taking some deep breaths and being present and grounded before I start my workday. I like to be centered and grounded.
Okay. How young are you?
How young am I? You're going to ask me that on air? I am 52 years young.
You are not 52-year young. You are 18-year young with 34-year experience.
I don't know that I want to be 18 again, Nishant. I have a 20-year-old and a 24-year-old, and I'm happy with where I'm at.
Okay. So, who is your living mentor and what's the impact?
Well, I have already mentioned my co-author, Dr. Sheila K. Collins. She is definitely one of my living mentors. And I would say another one of my living mentors is Glenda Taylor from oneandallwisdom.com. And the impact these women have on my lives is, first of all, they're both in their 80s and they are just rocking it. Like, they are authors and speakers and community builders. And I think their impact on me is, first of all, I'm not afraid of growing older. Like, they are just showing me how to do it. Like, whoo. And I think the other impact is that piece of community, and that I have role models and mentors that are just passionate and living their lives, living their best lives. And they share that with me. And so I think that impact is community and connection and love.
Okay. What's your favorite book and what's your top 3 learning?
Ooh, I have to pick one. All right. I'm going to totally pick my own because I love this book. So my favorite book is Still Point. It's a self-care playbook for caregivers to find ease and time to breathe and reclaim joy. And I think that the top 3 learnings about it is that there are skills. There are 5 skills that we talk about in the book that we can learn to help us with our self-care. That it's not just what we do. There are mindsets that we can have. And so I think the biggest learnings out of there are talking about boundaries, about saying yes and saying no, that we need to say no to things in order to say yes to our health and other things. I think another one, oh, my favorite one, partnership power, that you don't have to do this by yourself, that it is okay to have a partner in things to help balance you and collaborate with and to give you support. And I think the third thing I would say about is self-care is not continuing to train and educate ourselves to take on more stress in order to take on more stress. That is not what self-care is.
Okay. What advice you will give younger yourself?
Oh, my younger self, go for it sooner. Go for it sooner. Like just, showing up is 90% of it. And show up for yourself, show up for others, and just go for it.
Okay. How can we support you?
Well, just having me on to speak. I love this, Nishant. We have Shannon and I, who you interviewed a couple of weeks ago. We have a new book coming out called Women Connected in Wisdom, and it is stories and resources rooted in the 8 dimensions of wellness. It is a collaborative book with 18 authors that have incredible stories. So how you can support us is to like and subscribe our podcast, Women Connected in Wisdom podcast, which is on all the major podcast platforms. And when this new book comes out in September, download it and give us a review. I think you're going to like it. I just saw the proof and it is, I'm really proud and excited about it.
Okay. Oh, what would you like to say about your guest experience on this show?
Oh, that it's so warm and welcoming. And I'm so grateful for the invitation and how easy it was, and just a delight to talk to you, Nishant.
Okay. What's your final word?
My final word. Breathe. Breathe.
Okay. Breathing is very important. We can't live without breath.
Right? And often we don't take deep breaths and we don't take a moment for ourselves. So my final word would be to take a moment to take a deep breath and consciously let out the stress that you're carrying as you listen to this, because you're probably at work or you're probably in your car. So just let that stress go and know that you are worth it. You are worth it. Taking care of yourself is so vital.
Thanks, Christine, for sharing your wisdom with us. On the behalf of our community and team, we really appreciate you. Until the next time, all good wishes to you.
Oh, you too, Nishant. Thank you so much.